Born to Build podcast.
Welcome to Born to Build, conversations with the builders, founders, and pioneers driving change from the ground up, giving you the tools to grow your business. Nicole is the co-founder of Common Tread, a South African barefoot shoe company. She started with her husband to help people, especially children, move the way nature intended to. With a background in occupational therapy, Nicole brings a deep understanding of human movement and child development to a brand that blends craftsmanship and soul. Nicole, so great to chat with you today. Welcome.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Nicole, take us to the beginning. What first inspired you and your husband to start Common Tread? Did it come from your background as an OT or as your needs as a parent? What was driving you?
So I think a bit of both was sort of how it got started. Well, initially when we were first married, and that was sort of 12 years prior to starting the business, we had always dreamed of a shoemaking endeavor of some kind. We bought our first handbook off Amazon, bespoke shoemaking, started understanding the craft. John did a shoemaking US-based course, and being an engineer was able to then kind of think about how we would design the shoe. And it started about 6 years ago. It was during the COVID lockdown time that we actually had a bit more time on our hands, that we could start thinking a bit more about maybe something on the sideline. And we have a workshop in our home. And so we started tinkering a little bit in the workshop, got some leather tools, ended up buying a secondhand sewing machine, and realized that actually this could be a product that could really impact not only our own children, but definitely other children. When we saw how well our barefoot shoe, our first prototype, worked for our own boys. And I think in terms of the OT background, just started observing my own toddlers, sort of clambering up rocks and Newlands Forest and trails in Kirstenbosch, and realized the shoes that we had them in were actually quite restrictive. Very solid, thick soles, squashed their little toes into sort of a more sharp, sort of pointy toe cap, very red. When I took the shoes off, I thought, no, there has to be a better option out there. And then did some research and realized there really wasn't anything available. And that's when I said to John, I think we need to start with the kids and let's see how it grows. But that's where the need is. And it was just really encouraging. I mean, our first one was sort of more Scandinavian turn shoe type design. And it mimicked like the barefoot, and that was so exciting. And then did our own research and realized there's a whole science behind this thing. Let's let's run with it. And got great feedback from friends, etc. And that's how it started. Yeah.
What's a turn shoe? Sorry for my ignorance.
So the Scandinavian turn shoe is like you create it almost like you stitch it by hand, like a Viking shoe. Stitch it by hand and then you turn it inside out and it fits over the foot like a slipper. But there's no rigid sole. It's basically leather on ground. So there's, sensory feedback from the environment. Your foot is naturally able to move as it needs to. So early prototype or design that's people have used consistently through the years in various ways.
Great. Yeah, and I love also how you how it all started with your own needs, right? You're trying to scratch an itch and a problem that you've got yourself. That's often a great way, the best way to start with it, right? It's just to know that you're the client, you're the customer, you're trying to solve something for yourself. Now you describe Common Tread as barefoot shoes made with soul. Obviously, there's a nice pun there, but what does that phrase mean to you personally?
Yeah, I think, we always felt like we wanted to our story to resonate with people. And so we wanted to also be a brand that is relatable and people can see it's a family brand. And as you said, it was born out of a need for our own children. And so there's like a reason or there's an origin story there that is worth retelling. And then that our kids were so involved in the business as our little models and trialing out things and learning how to sew with needles and leather work, like from, when they could just about walk. And then the idea that it really was we don't feel, as Jesus followers, that it's from us. We do feel like there was a greater vision put on our hearts, and it's been a faith journey just to see how
Mm.
the Lord's going to unfold this picture. And it's been absolutely incredible to look back on the last 5-6 years and see, uh, you know, his hand of provision and
Mm.
grace over our business, because it hasn't always been easy, but it's been the most fulfilling, meaningful venture. And so, yeah, I guess you could look at it from a lot of perspectives, but the Made with Soul side of things is that it's also it's a business with life and a personal connection. We really try to also, the customer interaction is like one of our main what would you call it, sort of pillars of our business, where we want to be set apart in that way, that we treat each customer as an absolute individual, and you're not just a number. And we do really need your business, and we appreciate you being part of the family. And so I guess a family brand, where that human connection is a big part of it, and that it's got a South African flavor. And South Africans are so full of life and soul. I mean, we have a US based branch of our business now, and they've one sort of founder of that business is South African, but his wife isn't. And she's like, I just want to come and meet these South African people, because I just hear so much about your amazing mixture of cultures. And I just want to
Mm.
come and meet these warm. And so that's kind of how we're known as people. So we do have soul as a people group,
Yeah.
So we
Mm.
just want to keep that South African flavor in the way we do business, in our products. And it definitely, they're set apart in that they do look South African. When we export, people are like, we haven't seen shoes like this ever, so it's exciting.
That is very exciting.
Yeah.
Well, no, barefoot shoes are, they are a bit of I believe, a growing movement globally, but you've rooted yours in child development and natural posture. You started with your kids first as well, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, that's probably your OT background as well. But you said it's a science. Can you
Yeah.
unpack that science a little bit? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we always say, it really starts like healthy posture, general good functioning starts from the ground up. And it's starting from a young age, but it's also starting from our feet, which is the basis of how we move around, our
Yeah.
agility, our posture. And a child's foot is so vulnerable to external influences and way more flexible and malleable than an adult's foot, due to fewer crosslinks of collagen fiber. And so the muscles, the ligaments are still mechanically developing and strengthening for years. A child's foot is only fully developed sort of puberty onwards. So you've got
Mhm.
all that time where shoes matter. What you do with your feet matter in terms of preventing deformity. It generally strengthen your feet, keeping it natural, your movement natural, your feeling natural, because it impacts your overall functioning going forward. I think what parents don't understand often is that, they think arch support is important, ankle support is needed for babies' feet where they still, but actually you're really wanting the feet to develop naturally and strengthen naturally. And that will mean stronger feet going forward, not strong,
Right.
supportive, rigid shoes equaling strength going forward. So I think a lot of people don't realize that you need to look out for shoes that follow the natural foot shape, whereas most shoes are built on lasts, traditional lasts, which are narrow, pointy toe caps. And yeah, I think we've seen a huge shift. And as parents become more aware, they see how agile their children are on jungle gyms and the climbing confidence that results, and then they go, oh, there is there's something to be said for shoes that mimic the foot, God's natural design. I think it's also important, I suppose, the sensory feedback aspect. I would say a lot of parents don't realize we actually are, we're preventing injury, number one, by being allowed to feel the terrain around us. Kids can then, correct their balance or hold on where they need to hold on when they actually feel, oh, my foot is feeling the change in terrain. So that's where the thin sole, the flexible sole is important. But also we're actually building neural pathways and we're developing our brain when we are walking barefoot and we getting that
Mm.
feedback from the environment. And so, yeah, when I say science, I mean, there's some real experts in the field. If your listeners want to educate themselves, it's incredible to see what's out there. And I think, especially like the trail running community and those are the guys that have gone into it because of injury, so now they transition to barefoot shoes and they've realized I didn't need the orthotics. I didn't need the high cushioning. I just needed my feet to get strong. And
Mm.
I mean, that's my husband's story, no hip, no knee injuries, no back pain because you transitioned to barefoot running shoes and he's a trail runner. So there's
Wow.
something there. Yeah.
You haven't got a product line for running shoes yet, have you? Or is he using his own shoes there? Or does he use?
No, unfortunately not. We're using another running brand, but we are looking at a trail running sandal and partnering with a really cool local company. So that's in the pipeline. And then we also have a barefoot sneaker. But actually many of our men run hike in our Traversa and our Tega, those two. It's quite a nice hiking sort of boot, and it becomes really flexible with time, but not yet a running shoe. Need to go that, hopefully in the pipeline.
Great. It did take me back when you started mentioning it starts with your feet, to my routines, my own personal routines. So maybe a bit of a selfish question here, but I probably 2 years ago, my
Mm,
my wife gifted me a standing desk. So obviously quite a problem nowadays, right? Is that we spend most of our days just sitting, right?
mm,
Sitting at desks
mm,
all day. And so yeah, about 2 years ago, got the standing desk, but never actually used it properly until probably maybe like a year ago, when I just challenged myself to
mm,
not sit down before 3 o'clock. So to kind of try and stand all day. But any tips for me as I'm standing? Is there anything that I need to be aware of? This is very
mm,
kind of desk-based job, I guess.
mm.
Yeah, any tips for people there?
Yeah, I would say like, even standing for prolonged periods of time, you still need to give your body those like body movement breaks. I'm sure you do. Step
Right.
outside, do a few stretches. Just that break is really important. And then to look at, are you standing in your barefoot or do you have shoes on when you are spending those prolonged periods of time standing? Because of the wedge and the gradient in a lot of the shoes, we actually are influencing the position of our pelvic girdle, our spine, depending on how the slope of the sole in our shoes. So
Mhm.
to look at that is also, I guess, really important. Yeah, I think if standing means you slouching less, you're having to work, so you're having to sort of strengthen and work your muscles. I would say, yeah, brilliant if you can keep that going, and maybe for people who are wanting to transition, to just do it slower, sort of
Right.
gradually, and then yeah, and it's the same for transitioning to barefoot shoes. A lot of people go from very cushioned shoes to minimalist shoes, and they experience injury or discomfort at least. And so the idea is that you strengthen with exercises and you go slow. And so actually our Traversa and our Tega are actually a good transitional shoe. They're not very typically a barefoot shoe with super flexible soles and a bucket sole and a minimalist sole, but it's a really nice shoe to get you into proper barefoot wearing. In the future. And as I say, that sneaker is on its way, coming sort of 4 to 6 weeks time.
Uh, your backgrounds, you in occupational therapy, your husband in engineering. How do those complement each other in your product design process?
Yeah, so I think it's been great. I think from I'm also really I love design and aesthetics and style, and so that part of the business sort of has been my baby, and the brand
Mm.
identity, and then also just sort of contributing in terms of the biomechanics and the development of the feet and all of that. John's side of things has really been, he's very handy, and just as an engineer has often built things and designed things. So taught himself how to make shoes, and then was able to teach our team of artisans initially in Woodstock how to make shoes. They were bag experts and not shoe experts. And so John
Okay.
taught that team of people, and we've since transitioned to a different factory in KZN. But I was I felt encouraged and supported by someone who really knew how the shoe making skills are there, and that's often, I think, people notice the detail of our shoes, and I often say I put that down to John's knowledge, because he's worn barefoot shoes, but he also knows how to make them, and then he understands what the design and what's needed to make them functional. And
Right.
so I think we complement each other in many ways. It's sort of the mechanic and the medic, the mind sort of marrying, and there is a beautiful sort of almost relationship there of what we both can bring to the table. And I think we both love the entrepreneurial side of things. It's very exciting, and no day is ever the same. And so, yeah, it's actually strengthened our marriage. A lot of people say, "Oh, how do you work day in, day out?" The one saving grace is that we don't sit in the same office every single day. There is those gaps, and he's sort of at another his engineering job. But
Mm.
but we do come together to discuss and to plan, and yeah, do our markets and things together. And so, yeah, it is really it's a partnership for certain. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant because you
Yeah.
you have see that in common. Amazing. You got a great partnership going there.
Yeah.
Um, on the craft side of things, so um, you mentioned you've moved to a factory. So are they still officially handcrafted then, or what does that then look like? Or did
Yeah,
you?
so
Are you
some of the processes are sort of mechanized, but yes, it's a team of people, um, all sort of using their hands. It's very much, some of it is mechanized, some of it's computerized, but a lot of it is still hand stitching, hand work. Yeah, and that's what, yeah, it sort of sets us apart, because you can see that it's a product. There's some variations often, the leather, there's variations in the leather. And I suppose to your point about being made with soul, that also, it's not always
right?
perfect, but it's, yeah, in the small imperfections, sometimes there's life and substance, and you can see someone's put their heart and their effort into the product. Yeah, so it's very exciting that for us, it's still very much based as a South African business, South African manufacturer, and we work really well with the people that we have on our teams.
I guess people that or businesses that they market themselves as handmade or handcrafted, they
Yes.
struggle with the scaling part because now how do you scale like the handmade thing or like the
Mm,
handcrafted?
mm,
But it's being able to move that to a factory where that's still you
mm,
can still claim that, but there's a bit
yeah.
more of a scaling process going on. That's brilliant. I think a lot of people struggle with that, so you've done
Mm,
really well
mm.
doing that.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Now, also you mentioned you've partnered with an organization, a nonprofit organization called Samaritan's Feet.
Mm.
That's a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so they I can't remember if they approached us, and we really just felt like we were looking for something that where we could, I guess, that where our business could again speak of something other than just making money, getting new products out there, that the business would have heart, have soul, and would look different maybe to other businesses. And Samaritan's Feet then approached us, and we had a great meeting with them, and just really it resonates with us with the great work that they're doing, and they're an NPO that form part of an international humanitarian organization. And their main thing is that they don't just supply a pair of shoes to impoverished children. They actually care about the individual and um, connect with those children while they're providing the shoes. They wash feet. They talk about their life goals. They counsel, encourage. They give them hope and help them to see that their lives are very much worth, of huge value. And so I loved, I think also being an OT, we're very big on not just like putting a plaster on a wound and what can you do to enable an individual to use their own skills, to use what the resources they have available for them to realize they have agency, they can make decisions and change the
Mm.
trajectory of their lives. And so all of that sort of spoke to me. And then we were looking to donate. We wanted to donate, so we donated 100 pairs of shoes to the organization, and then they distribute accordingly. And then we just try to create awareness for them, and just really passionate about saying to people, if you would like to get involved, volunteering, just as a sort of a community worker, it can be once or it can be regularly, donating shoes, donating money, donating your time, spreading the word for them. They're just the most fantastic organization. So we're looking at various ways we can um, spread awareness for them and just help them as a organization. And so we hope that partnership would really grow, as the years go on. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful.
Mm.
Amazing. A little bit about building the business, maybe.
Mm.
What were, especially in those early days, what were your
Mm.
biggest challenges in those early days? How did you
Sure.
get to
Yeah.
market? Did you go to trade shows? How did this all
Yeah.
start? But
So
yeah, what challenges?
so many different facets, I guess, to starting a business, and we were doing
Mm.
it all ourselves. You don't have so major challenges, capital. And you have this bit of money. Where do you invest it? Where's the best place to start? Did our own website, for example, on Shopify. And then when we had the cash, could then get a website developer to tweak it and polish it and make it look a bit more how we had envisioned it. But in the beginning, you're just doing everything yourself,
Mm.
and self teaching, looking at YouTube tutorials and asking a friend, and can you please volunteer your time here and there? And so I would say capital was huge. Cash flow was another one. As you put money to materials and you're paying the artisans, you having less money to then produce a new range, and people are going, your stock levels are low. When are your shoes coming? And we would like a closed shoe and not just the open shoe, etc. So I guess where to distribute your funds was a huge challenge, and learning and growing in that, whether to take out a loan or not. And then
Did you take out a loan or have you had?
family member, we decided that would be the best route. And we have pitched to investors, but we didn't feel like it was the right time. And to look at sort of capital, venture capitalists was just, it felt like we were giving away our baby, and our heart, and we didn't feel peaceful about that decision. So we decided to do the loan first,
Mm.
and grow sort of more steadily, but slowly, but grow with peace in our hearts.
Okay.
And so yeah, it remains a difficult thing managing the inventory and the cash flow. John is sort of more the business, sort of financial side of things, so that's his baby.
Mhm.
But that was one thing. I think getting to market we relied on our website and the minimal marketing budget that we had, and we just tried to use that very wisely. Educate ourselves. Do we do digital marketing ads? Do we do flyers at preschools and creches, and do we go that route? And then when we did have a bit of cash, we went to a digital marketing agency, and that really helped our business grow. significantly
Mm.
because, then the adverts got to the right audience. And then we actually have relied a lot on our own Instagram feed, and
Right.
then our just growing organically, growing by word of mouth. Our
Mm.
customer return rate is, I mean, we've got some families coming back for their fifth pair of common tread kids' shoes. And those families then have told other families. And so it's taken time, but it's been such a powerful tool to help our business grow. I'm just trying to
Mm.
think. We recently opened a store, our physical store in Woodstock, which is also where we run our operations, and we ship from there. But customers can come in and try the shoes. We can do exchanges. But we've recently secured a spot in Claremont, partnering with a business called The Grounded Soul. And they're a multi-brand store. And so our shoes will be stocked there. And so the Cape Town customers can go to Claremont. And so it's grown in that there's a few
Yeah,
retailers sort
cool.
of around the country, where at least I think when you say what were the challenges, the challenge was that people wanted to try the shoes on in the beginning and would have to come to our house, our home, if they lived in Cape Town. And if not,
Right.
sorry, can you use our online sizing chart? But most people want to try on shoes
Right.
before they purchase. So it was a real barrier until we've built, I think, enough credibility over time for people to be like, oh no, we know they're going to fit well. Don't worry, their sizing is accurate. But that no one knows that in the beginning. So we relied heavily on
Yeah.
reviews on our website as well. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I guess especially if it's a slightly different type of shoe as well, that you're
That's it.
experimenting with something new for yourself as well. So I guess there's an extra hurdle there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So building a handcrafted product still,
Mhm.
in South Africa, that really does take some grit.
True.
So what have been some of those harder lessons learned? Maybe some mistakes that you've made along the way as well that you've learned from.
I think the idea of, in the beginning, you sort of look at your competitors, and it's quite overwhelming, and the inclination is there to want to compete and stay sort of where they, or get where they are quickly, and it's
Hmm.
never going to happen. It's a business needs to grow organically and slowly. And so something that we were very encouraged by in the beginning was just this idea. We felt like God dropped it into our hearts, is just stay in your own lane. I've created this business for a very specific purpose. I know where the finish line is, and you don't need to go ahead of me. I will go ahead of you and guide you. So I think when we received that word in our heart, and we knew we could just take a deep breath, it will grow as it's intended to grow, with purpose, with soul. Yeah. And so it was, I think, when it felt like we wanted to throw in the towel many times, because our shoes would come back and have factory flaws, or we would get a customer saying, but it's so disappointing, I'm now ready for my next size and you don't have stock. And um, I'm trying to think of some other, um, or not receiving shoes, been given a lead time and not receiving those shoes, and having like an international shipment due and not being able to, hold to our side of the deal. And when you spoke about scaling, being able to meet the demand is also something that a small business that is growing then needs to. It's a huge challenge.
Mm.
And so I think when we felt like we've helped each other, when we've had our low moments, we've definitely helped each other and said,
Yeah.
no, this business needs, we've derived so much meaning from it. It's a purpose beyond what we, I think, can even fathom right now. So we will keep going, even though it's really tough. And that's also when we ended up going to a family member for a loan, etc., because it's just, we knew we had to keep going. And it really has grown amazingly, to the point now where our family friends have started our US based branch, and that's really
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah, so they're based in Virginia, and then we export to Dubai. They love our sandals, our kids' sandals,
Yeah.
and then we've got a UK retailer, and then a couple of of retailers in South Africa. And I think it's exciting. We've discovered that the game ranges in the Limpopo area, they're quite enjoying the new high cut range for the men. And so we really want
Okay.
to grow that community. Yeah, so it's getting there. It's been an amazing journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned your family friends in the US. They started a branch there, and ones in Dubai and UK. How did you start those relationships?
So in the beginning, yeah, that's sort of reaching. That's like phoning, emailing, like putting yourself out there. I mean, it was lists and lists of retailers that we contacted, explaining to them who we are. And some people are just, they don't even reply. Others are like, okay, well, let's have a meeting. I can't see the profit margins, the markups and that working, but we can have, so that, you go in with a bit of a reluctance to start. We managed to sort of convince others. The ones that we have now are people that came to us. So it was,
Okay.
and that was like a real breakthrough for us. And that took like 2 or 3 years. That was not an easy so it didn't happen overnight. But when they did approach us, it's like they wanted the product. They were willing to do whatever they could to help us get it there,
Right.
pay for import taxes, etc. Then so then it felt like we weren't begging for business.
Mm.
They believed in our product, but it definitely took time to grow. And I think they look at your website, they look at your reviews, they see what your Instagram following is, and we had to be a bit further along in the process, and we needed our product to be of an international export standard. And that in itself took, I think it was 3 years.
Mhm.
Initially, we had a more rustic looking shoe. Let's put it that way. It had a recycled rubber sole, black recycled rubber sole, which would
Okay.
wear away slightly. And so some people love the organic, chilled Cape Town feel, and others were
Mm.
like, we want our shoes to, they could still be passed on, but we want them to look good throughout. And so we
Mm.
had to tweak that, and then that's when we went to the stitch down sole construction and changed our rubber. So yeah, the product's definitely changed over time as well,
Mm.
and we've listened to our audience, listened to the different audience, international and local. Yeah.
Mm. Do you find that are the needs different internationally versus local? Do you find it to be different
Yes,
audiences?
I think in terms of, South Africans, when you say sort of handcrafted, as I mentioned earlier, they're quite accepting of like slight variations in the leather hides and
Mm.
um, maybe like a scratch or two, or whereas the international customers, I think they're used to a very polished, like factory looking shoe. Like there's just
Right.
nothing. Yeah. So that's been a bit of a challenge to be like, no, guys, this is how it's made. It's going to have, as I say, those slight imperfections, but it adds to the beauty of the shoe.
Mm.
And not that, the product is obviously of a very high standard, but yeah, it has been sort of, yeah, quite a different, but very well receiving, very excited and supportive of our business and how we've grown and our story. So it's not like, yeah, there's still like that personal connection with the exporters that we have at the moment. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
What's a defining customer story or milestone for you?
Yeah, there are quite a few, but I think the one that sort of stands out for me, there was a little boy whose parents approached us at a market or an expo early on, sort of a mommy and me expo. We met them, and I saw their, with tears in their eyes, basically explained their child's story and said their son had been diagnosed with hemophilia, which is a bleeding disorder. And the pediatrician had recommended adequate footwear, whatever that was, and
Mm.
that the smallest bump, slight injury would cause a bleed in the joints, under the skin, open, lacerate, whatever. So it was just that you could see they were desperate to find something that their child could still use from a developmental perspective, would aid his movement and help him play like the other children, but would still give him the protection from the environment that he needed. And then when they found our store, they couldn't believe how flexible. They're like, we've been looking for shoes like this. We haven't found anything in the main retailers. And then we had bought a pair, and then we got this wonderful email from them, and that was sort of in our first year of just how it had
Um,
changed the little boy's playing experience at school, and the mom was no longer anxious that he was going to knock his feet and bleed, and then they just kept on buying. It was so amazing to like see an email from them each year as they needed a new size, and then obviously we're very disappointed when we said we only go up to size 9 and you'd be on those toddler years. But that stands out for me. They were just a very down to earth, wonderful, special family that I was pleased to be able to be part of their story in some way.
um,
Yeah, so I'd say that would be what stands out for me.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Looking ahead, what's your dream for Common Trade?
Um, sure, Sam. Yeah, we have big aspirations for, I think, sort of more of a global footprint. And we do believe, because we are able to retail for slightly higher overseas, the profit margins are higher, and so we can actually use that money over here to create a greater impact. So we really are focusing on the global export side of things, and just getting some more retailers and growing our US brand. They're going to be stocking our adult shoes as well, and I think the Felly Feltskin uniqueness about those shoes hopefully will appeal to that audience. And then I think we would love to, just be a little bit more active in the education space. So we have a range of school shoes. And we really want to be able to grow that side of the business to the point that we're able to uh, actually gift underprivileged schools with school shoes. That we do believe that there is room for that, if we can get the right people involved. And
Mhm.
then just to grow our local retailer base, so that our shoes are more readily available, so that other children can benefit from our toddler shoes. And so that's sort of on our next plan, is to actually just get some more, especially in Pretoria and Joburg. We get a lot of inquiries around that. To keep, I think, just keep being a business that does have kingdom values and is set apart. And with the Lord's help, we can do that.
Amazing. Love it.
Mm.
And I'm pretty sure you guys are going to go far with Common Trade. You guys have such a beautiful brand as well, but also obviously a beautiful product. Just a few fun rapid fire questions. You get to choose
Okay,
either or. So either build fast or build right.
build right.
Early mornings or late nights.
Early mornings.
Same.
Mm.
Done is better or perfect is better.
Perfect is better.
Perfectionist speaking there. I
Yeah.
see. Brainstorm solo or collaborate loudly.
Brainstorm solo. Mm.
Cool. Brilliant. Thanks, Nicole. So fun chatting with you. Love the stories. Very inspiring what you guys are up to, and wishing you guys all the best.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks. It was great chatting to you too.
Born to build.